Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to another episode of Soul Over Matter podcast, a podcast for souls along the awakening journey. Today, we have David Gandelman, an author, spiritual teacher, founder of Meditation School app, Energy Matters, and Grounded Sleep podcasts. David's mission is to awaken souls on their path of growing into being human and living an enlightened, purpose-driven life. I love that mission. So David, welcome to Soul Over Matter. How are you today?
Hey, I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I am excited you're the first, meditation teacher on Soul Over Matter. So I'm excited for my listeners to, get to know you more. And I'm excited to hear your story more too. So I always start with, where did this begin, right? Where did your personal awakening happen and start to cultivate?
Sure. It started when I was 16. So kind of young, I guess. I was just, living a normal suburban kind of New Jersey life, playing ice hockey, chasing girls. I oddly was really into the stock market since I was 13. I was trading stocks and politics. So I was a little nerdy on that front. And I definitely explored drugs pretty early on as well. So I had a wide range of experience at an early age. And then my brother dragged me to a bookstore after he was taking a bunch of psychedelics in college and was like, read a book, you loser, you never read books. I literally never read books. I couldn't stand reading books. And so I just picked up a random one. It happened to be The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. And kind of that night, just maybe 5 pages in, it was, just something radical shifted in me, like light bulb went off, and had what you might call a spiritual awakening of some kind. And I started meditating a lot, hours and hours every day, and reading books. And I eventually went on to get my degree in philosophy because that's, I was looking for depth. I went to go live in the Himalayas and studied with a bunch of teachers up there. And that's how the journey began, just from reading a few pages of a book. So thank you, Eckhart, you beautiful, amazing gnome, enlightened being.
He is a gnome. I was just
Yeah,
said, oh my gosh, I always call him a gnome.
yeah.
Power of
He's
Now is
from another
also,
world. Yeah.
what'd you say?
He's from another world. And even his initials are ET. I love that.
Oh my gosh, I never realized
Right.
that. Yes, they
Yeah.
are. Yeah, The Power of Now. I actually read that in high school as well, like on the subway. I grew up in New York, so we have that East Coast,
Oh,
East
nice.
Coast energy. Do you remember? It's interesting to look back, right? Like, do you remember certain parts of the book, or was it more of like this resonance of like remembering?
It was both for sure. Hey, doggies. uh, it was both. I could remember a lot of the book and the moments that like really struck me. And the first one was that super simple message of our minds are constantly moving into the future and into the past, and we're rarely in this moment. Now, when most of us hear that, we're like, yeah, duh. But at the time, it was very radical, because probably until I was 10 or 11 years old, I was in the moment. I remember walking through the forest by my house as a kid and just being very present. And then when I was walking through the same forest when I was like 13, my mind started swirling. It's probably hormones. and, and just the analytical mind kind of begins to take form more and more. And I was like, wow, I think a lot. And I used to walk through this forest and not. So, and then when I read that, I was like, oh, that was the change that happened to me from childhood to my teenage
Mm.
years. All of a sudden, I'm thinking a lot, and I'm never in this moment. And that realization just kind of, cracked me wide open. And so it was that part of the book. It was very early on in the book that that shift happened.
Wow. Yeah, it's so meta, right? To think that we think about our own thoughts. It's wild. So, yeah, what got you started meditating for hours? Was it just this like natural natural phenomena.
Yeah, I just started reading that book and then, probably read a few hundred more. I just was devouring every book I could find on meditation and spirituality. And so I was just practicing everything I could find and exploring, definitely in an exploration stage at that point. And there were no teachers at that time. There was no YouTube or podcasts or anything. It was really just books. I was in the suburbs in New Jersey, so there was like nowhere to go. And so I didn't even talk to anyone else about it probably until my 20s, early 20s in college. I went to a Zen class, and that was really profound for me too. But before that, it was just me and my books. Sounds lonely. David and his books meditate.
Oh. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, books are, oh my gosh, every book is just so different, right? It's like a whole nother world, a whole nother journey and adventure. But yeah, no, it's so right. The internet now, the accessibility right now for people who are just awakening is huge. And for many of us who awakened at a younger age, it felt lonely at times, right? Like just to kind of be in our thoughts or in these books. And so when you said you went to the Himalayas, can you talk more about that?
Yeah, sure. I went to live up in a place called Rishikesh, which is kind of like the yoga Disneyland of India. Just hundreds of ashrams along the Ganges River, and you can find any kind of teacher there you want. Lots of Westerners, lots of great restaurants, and a very sacred pilgrimage site for Hindus. About an hour and a half hike up the mountain from there is a temple where they say Krishna sucked the poison out of the earth, and that's why he's blue. And so it's a pretty special place. I mean, energetically, there's been a lot of masters coming through Rishikesh, like Shivananda is probably the one that comes to mind first. And so I went up there and I lived in some ashrams. I lived in the ashram next door to where the Beatles lived, and I studied Vedanta and Zen and Hinduism, Buddhism. Again, devouring every book in India I could find, and doing a bunch of Vipassana retreats and learning from other travelers. And so it was a really great exploration for me into that Eastern consciousness. And it definitely changed me. Probably grew more in that time in India in a year than in 4 years in college. Also, seeing all the poverty, seeing the realness of life there compared to the suburbs of New Jersey. And it was profound. It was really profound. I had no idea what I would do for a living, like that I would be a teacher one day. I really had no direction at all, because at that time there was no career path unless you wanted to be like a monk maybe, or I guess write a book. That hadn't really crossed my mind much. So I was just there learning, going, what the hell am I going to do?
Wow.
And
So
yeah,
yeah.
I guess I'll just finish the story with a friend of mine was dating an intuitive healer, which at the time I didn't know what that was. And he said, "Why don't you get a reading with her?" And I was like, I don't know what that is, but sure." And so she sat me down on some cushions at this restaurant. In Rishikesh, often in the restaurants are sitting on the floor on cushions along the river. It's really, really magical. And she just closed her eyes and she kind of peered into my soul and said a bunch of pretty incredible things that very much validated me. I was just blown away that she could see those things inside me. And so I said, "Where did you learn how to do that, you witch?" And I didn't say witch. I probably thought it. And she was like, "Oh, this intuitive school in Hawaii." So I bought a plane ticket and I moved to Hawaii. I hitchhiked out of the airport, lived in a tent for a while on people's floors. And I spent 7 years at an intuitive development school, and 3 years as the director, eventually, teaching and running it. And so I did a nice healthy 7 year cycle on an island, studying the kind of more energetic, intuitive healing arts. So it went from like Western philosophy to Eastern philosophy and studies to more mysticism and energy work. And I guess now is just kind of my own style mix of all of that. And that was the journey from pimply faced teenager in New Jersey to living in Hawaii doing magic, and now talking with you here.
The journey.
Sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, actually.
We get to tell our stories, right? Isn't it? It's wild when we voice it aloud. That's why I always ask it, because a lot of people too are, not all of them, but some people are just starting their journeys. And I think it's so important, because I do this with a lot of my clients, but honoring like where we are in this now moment and where we are on our journey, right? And like how far we actually have come, because as humans, we know, right? We're always hard on ourselves. Like, I want to do more, I want to be more. And it's like, to look back, I mean, yeah, from 16 years old in your bedroom and like reading Eckhart Tolle to doing magic in Hawaii and living in tents, it's almost like pinch me moments, right? To be like, holy shit, wow, okay, this
Yeah,
is my life.
my parents were so happy. I decided to go do magic for a living.
After a 4-year degree, what did you get your
That's
degree
right.
in?
I double majored at Rutgers University in philosophy and politics.
Okay, cool. Yeah, how did your family feel about that? Like, David's
Yeah,
going to Hawaii.
my parents are Russian immigrants. So my first language was Russian. My dad's name is Vladimir. He's an engineer, very classical, you know, logical brain. And so, yeah, my mom is in accounting. So they're like, what in the fuck are you doing? But at the same time, I'm very blessed. I mean, they didn't financially support me, but they never tried to stop me or tell me to change my path. So I was very, very lucky that my parents didn't put any pressure on me and were like, for some reason, just let me do whatever I thought I wanted to do. And that was, I feel like if I had parents that were more controlling, I might be sitting, you know, at some office in an investment bank in New York City. Not that there's anything wrong with that. If you're listening to this, it just wasn't my path. Yeah.
Yeah, to grow up with like left-brained parents, right? Like
Yeah.
analytical, logical, and wow. Yeah, but that's true, right? It's our upbringing definitely affects us, and to have parents that may not have understood it, right? But they're like, all right, we trust you and we
What is he
respect you.
doing? We do not understand why he go to Hawaii and make magic.
So you went from the Himalayas, and this intuitive healer read you, and then you're like, okay, Hawaii. Like, you just immediately
Well,
jumped there.
so I bought a plane ticket, and then before I went, I booked what's called a palm leaf reading in India. In the term in India is a nadi reader. And I really don't understand how they do those readings, but my mother and my brother flew into India to hang out with me, and I booked them too. And I took the three of us, and this guy came like super highly recommended. There was a long wait, and so we drove all through Bangladesh, the city, not Bangladesh. Uh, oh, anyway, I forgot where it was. It doesn't matter. Whatever city it was to find him. It took so long, and he didn't open the door for over an hour.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
we were about to
It
leave,
sounds
and
like one of those stories, right?
yeah,
Like
it
this
was
monk on a
insane.
mountain.
It was insane. And Bangladesh is a country anyway. It's not a city. Just have to correct that. so, so we find him, and he lets us in, and he sits us down, and he does a reading for my brother and my mother. And he's like reading off. All I gave him was my first name, and he's just reading off like a leaf or something. And his father did it, and his grandfather did it. And already had my ticket to move to Hawaii. So he goes, you're going, I'll do my best Indian accent. You're going to a place like Australia, and you're going to live on the farm, and then you're going to be a psychic, and then you're going to be a teacher, and then you're going to be an author and write books. And I was like, well, that's pretty funny, because I have a plane ticket to Hawaii, which you probably didn't even know what Hawaii was, right? For him, the closest thing is Australia. And when I got to Hawaii, the only place I could find to live was on a farm. So I lived on a farm for months in a tent, working on the farm as a way to pay my way to have a free place to live. and study at the same time. And then all the other things came true. And that was cool.
Yeah. How wild, right?
That's
From a
how I
leaf.
got, yeah, from a leaf. I'm like, damn, the leaves I look at, don't tell me that stuff.
You're like, leaf, tell me. Go to the
Tell me
forest.
something, leaf. Tell me.
Wow. What island were you on?
The Big Island.
Mm. So, and that was, what timeline was that? Like, how long ago was that? Were you there for 7 years?
Yeah, like I don't know, 24 to like 30 when I was till I was like 30 and a half, something like that, 31. And so I'm 38 now. So it's I haven't been back actually. Yeah, so after I left there, I started my own teachings and programs. I have an intuitive online intuitive academy called the Energy Matters Academy, where we train people in that kind of mystical magic work. And it's cool. It's cool. It's great. I love the island, but after a while, it feels isolating. There's not much going on. Everyone's smoking weed and surfing, and that's fun. But I don't do that either of those. So I was kind of done after 7 years.
And that's
Yeah.
when you started this academy, and then you moved back to this, like the mainland.
Yeah. I went to go live on my brother's couch for a year in upstate New York. He has a beautiful 200-acre farm. And so I
Wow.
lived on that farm while I decided how I was going to build the next piece of my life with no money. And I just decided, yeah, I'm going to go my own way, because the school in Hawaii was a nonprofit, and I was, working 70 hours a week, just exhausted and poor. I was like, I'm pretty tired of being poor. So I started
And
reading a
working
lot of
so hard.
and working so hard. And so I started reading a lot of entrepreneurship books, starting with the classic, like 4 Hour Work Week book, Tim Ferriss, to anything and everything I could find, the way I did when I was a teenager, when I started reading meditation books. So I started devouring all of that content and building my own businesses so I could be free and teach the way I wanted to. And not be controlled by some board of directors of a school or anybody else. And I've always been a very free spirit, as you could probably tell by now. And that, so I built my first business off my brother's couch, and then eventually moved to the West Coast and started teaching and creating my online programs. I work a lot with an app called Insight Timer, which is it's actually the world's most used meditation app, and it's really great. So they they're the ones that really got me going in the beginning, and to this day. Uh, and I just eventually built my own meditation app, podcasts, and all the things.
And now you're here. Do you hear that,
Here we
guys?
are.
David
I'm in
started
the
his
big
business
leagues.
on, what'd you say?
I'm in the big leagues now.
And I think it's important to people people
Such a
see
dork.
people see you now, right? They see you're an author, you have an app, you're all these things. But to hear like, hey, I started my business with $0 on my brother's couch, right? Like, people love to see the end result, and they forget where people come from. So I think it also gives those listening, or those who have big dreams, like, literally don't give up on your dreams. If there's something that is calling to you, right? It's a calling. It's, I'm sure you felt that way, right? Like, I just feel like maybe you didn't, but I just feel like I have to do something, and you don't really know what it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just add a little context to that, maybe a little inspiration. I was like, I'm gonna make a video for this thing called YouTube or whatever. I forget what it was for. And so I had really crappy gear. I had to stack like 20 books to like put the camera on something, the phone. And I had like a little step ladder I climbed. I was putting up a green screen. And I remember having this happened to me twice. So I share two versions of this story. This time I was climbing this step ladder, and I had this thought, I'm never going to get this. This is so hard. I'm never going to
Mm,
be as good as my teacher. And right when I had that thought, I slipped, I fell off, I knocked all the books down, and something from the green screen like hit me super hard in the head. And I had this welt on my forehead for like days, so I couldn't record. And I was so invalidated. I was like, see, I am a fucking loser. I'm gonna quit right now. And I was reading the 4 Hour Work Week at that time and just trying to figure everything out, really baseline stuff. And then let's see, fast forward last year, I got a shout out on Tim Ferriss's podcast. And I just, when that happened, I remember thinking back to that moment of like reading that book, climbing that step ladder, falling over, being like, I suck at life. And, it wasn't that long between those two moments. It was years. But it wasn't an insanely long amount of time. And the amount of work that I put in those years, though, was enormous. So maybe it might look like from the outside, well, you built all this stuff. Maybe you had wealthy parents, or you got lucky, or you're really skilled. No, I'm not. None of that is true. I'm not some exceptional person in any way, shape, or form. I'm not, the smartest person in the room. I'm not the best teacher in the room. What I will say is I work really, really obsessively hard at times, and I'm willing to take risk,
Mm,
and I'm willing to learn. So those are the qualities that kind of got me through all of that. I don't have any exceptional skills. Maybe some ninja skills. No. So yeah, if you are listening to this, yeah, if I could do it, that should give you a lot of confidence that
mm.
anybody can do it.
You're so
If
humble.
this guy can do it, what?
How humble. No, it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story, because yeah, I really think, I mean, entrepreneurs, business owners, it's like, you think, even people, I don't want to say bigger people than us, but you know what I mean? Like, people have 30, 100 people say no to them, but they keep going, like, to keep going, to keep trusting, even especially when one makes no sense. Everyone's like, what are you doing? Right? Like, this is crazy. And just to keep at it. And
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Yeah. Such a beautiful story and
I think it's
lightheartedness.
thanks. I think it's important to remember, if you are a teacher, or coach, or guide, a healer of some kind listening to this, and you are walking a similar path, then you also have to recognize you have to be an entrepreneur. Unless you're going to get a job and some corporation's just going to hire you to always teach, or some business, then you're not an entrepreneur. But if you're doing this for yourself, then you are. And a lot of teachers and guides, they don't really fully embrace that. And they tend to hit like some kind of technology wall or financial wall. And then they just get stuck. They're like, but I'm so good at what I do as a healer. I can't seem to pay the bills or get this thing off the ground. And it's because they're not really embracing that you're not just a healer, you're an entrepreneur, and you have to bring those two things together to make this work. And that's hard for people who are very spiritually oriented to
Mm,
think that way. And I actually really enjoy the business side of things. For me, it's like puzzles, like
mm.
how to like figure it out. Maybe like I don't work on cars, but I like to work on businesses and go, oh, how do we move these pieces around and put everything together? And I actually have a friend, Matt, who works with me, and he's worked with everyone from like Wim Hof, Brene Brown courses, Eckhart Tolle work, at Sounds True Publishing, and now he works the majority of his time with me, and I'm just like insanely fortunate. He's so talented, and we decided we're going to do a business training in the fall for people who are, let's say, we're in a similar position to me, and instead of wasting like years of like falling off step ladders and banging your head against walls and crying, like, no, here, you can actually skip some of that pain.
Here are the
And
shortcuts.
there's, there's no ultimate shortcuts, but there are definitely ways of being efficient and overcoming some challenges that I wish I had. And I really didn't make substantial moves in my work until I hired a business coach. I thought he was so expensive at the time. He was like $800 a month. And at the time I had no money. I was like, $800. Why don't you just take a kidney, man?
Black market.
Yeah, take my kidney. But looking back, it was cheap as hell, and the guy was amazing, and he totally turned my work around and taught me
Mm.
how to grow something. And we're good friends to this day. But from that perspective, I was like, it's so much money. And anyway, so that was really helpful to bring in an expert in something I was not an expert in to help me move forward. That was a huge lesson on my path.
Mm. What has been your favorite thing to create? Like of all, your podcast, your meditation school app, your academy, like what has been your book? We got to talk about your book.
Gosh, I don't know if I have a favorite. I'm kind of like my friend called me a polymath the other day. I think that means someone who's interested in a lot of things. And I get my excitement out of having like 5 different things on the stove going. Like, so one moment I'm creating sleep podcast content, and another I'm building a course, for Insight Timer. And then another moment I'm working with a team in Ukraine to build a new version of the meditation school app right now. And so I've all of these different creative projects. Yeah, the book. And I just truly enjoy them all. I
Mhm.
Teaching is less of a challenge now because I've been doing it for so long. I have about maybe like 20 people that I have to pay. And now I'm not just like a solopreneur, but I have like all of these people that I'm responsible for. So I have to generate income and keep and grow, what I've been building so that all of them can have work and we can all grow together. And I find that a really fulfilling and fascinating challenge because for me, it feels like a really deep way of giving, like, wow, this
Mm.
person could feed their families because of some dumb shit I say into a microphone. And
That's one way of putting it.
yeah, that's all right, David. That's a very inartful way of expressing what you do for a living.
Instead of, your creations, my dumb shit.
Yeah, my dumb shit. I'm sure you have a lot of female guests that phrase it that way. Uh,
Oh.
so I enjoy that kind of responsibility. I don't know, maybe it's part of my masculine energy of wanting to provide, but I like building those kinds of structures and watching the whole thing open and unfold. And then when something doesn't work, opening the hood up and seeing what it is. So I just like the whole process, really.
Mm. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, I mean that's left brain, right? We need both parts of our brains. We need both feminine and masculine. We can't
Yeah.
be in one or the other too much. It's got to be balanced. So, yeah, I love that you shared that too for anyone listening who is starting their business and just really. And I was that person years ago, like just in the woo woo, and I want to be a healer and I want to do the things, and I wasn't able to pay my bills. And you got to have that structure and
Yeah.
the systems in place.
Yeah. The
Um,
systems are really, really important. And what I've learned over time is I'm pretty bad at most things in life. Like, I'm genuinely not that good at a lot of things. And having that awareness and being able to, like, just because you're really good at one thing doesn't make you good at anything else. So, you might be great in your job, but you might suck at relationships, or you might be great at relationships. You might suck with money. And I'm open to recognizing where I suck, or I'm not that great yet, and getting the help I need to get better and better. I remember I read this book, Attachment on Relationships. I'm sure a lot of folks have read that book. I was like, wow, that's a really fascinating way of looking at relationships that I was so not aware of. Holy cow, I got some
mm,
work to do in that space.
oh
Uh,
yeah.
or or with investing, investing your money. Making money is one thing, investing it and building wealth is another. And that's an incredibly humbling process if you think you're going to beat the stock market average returns or something. So, like, wow, there's people out there that have so much knowledge. in so many areas of life. And I try to approach that with some form of humility, like, all right, let me see if I can understand some and bring some people in to help me. And that's been really, really helpful, finding balance in life in that way.
And asking for help, right? I'm sure. I know so
Oh,
many
I've
people.
so easy to ask for help for me. Yeah. I'm good at that.
That's
Help.
good. Yeah, no, delegating, right? It's like this, oh,
Yeah.
I got to do all this on my own, but yeah, understanding that we're all different and we all have different skills, and yeah, we're not meant to be great at everything. So, yeah,
If you're like,
no.
I'm great at everything, we need to have a conversation, right? I've never had a single morning in my life where I woke up and thought, damn, I'm really smart.
Oh.
It's never happened. Maybe one day I'll wake up and be like, fuck, I'm so smart. But that day has not come.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. I think you're my most humble guest yet. Which is great, right? Because I'm sure you've seen this too, this like guru syndrome that
Oh,
happens
yeah.
with people. And I'm sure you have gone through it. I've gone through it, right? To have, you said before, like, I'll never be as good as my teacher. And to have a teacher be so humble and to share their F ups and like to share, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to, yeah. I always say to my clients, like, kick the pedestal out from under me. Do not, like, I am right here with you, because we're all human. We're all human at the end of the day, and we're all learning. If you stopped learning, then you've stopped living.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to be a guru chaser when I lived in India. I
Mm,
chased all the gurus and was obsessed with that game for a while.
mm.
There's some being that's better than me that has all the enlightened answers, and if I just hang out with them enough, I'll through osmosis get it.
Osmosis.
Yeah, just give it to me. I'll just sit here and do nothing like an idiot, and I'll just become enlightened because I'm near you.
Oh,
I
yeah. But it
Yeah,
happens.
yeah,
It's dangerous. It's toxic what happens sometimes to people. And
yeah,
just, yeah, realizing, and you said before too, like, you read all these books, you did all these things, and then it came a point where, okay, I'm gonna take aligned action and create something from all that I've learned, right? Because people get caught up in that too, of like learning, being a student, and not stepping into that leader or stepping into that teacher or stepping into their purpose for
yeah,
fear of failure.
yeah. Or chasing a guru for way too long because you're never good enough. Then you end up
Mm.
like in a sex cult or something weird. Like, how did I
Well,
get here? Why did they take all my money? Why is my head shaved? Who am I? Why is my name
yeah, no,
tickling?
the cult thing is real. It's such a it can be
Yeah,
such a slippery slope.
I have friends that were in cults, and so I have a little bit of insight into that. And it tends to happen when somebody's got a weakness in their heart, and someone to pull on that. Yeah, I'll heal
Yeah.
you. I'll be your mother or father,
Oof.
partner, whatever it is. I'll play that. I'll fill that role for you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's discernment, right?
You didn't like that. You
Learning.
didn't like that. You're like, oh no, no,
No,
not
I
that.
literally felt that in my heart. I mean, cult, yeah, cult energy.
Yeah.
It is a slippery slope. We're our own gurus. Yes, you can learn all the things, but at the end of the day, like, you listen to your own heart. You gotta like tune in. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about your book. Can you talk more
Oh,
about your
that.
book? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that octopus leg,
That thing
like that
behind me.
tentacle.
Yeah. That thing behind me next to that unplayed guitar.
Yay. Oh, your
I'm
guitar
just
wants to be
kidding.
played.
I'm just kidding. I played it for a couple hours last night. Um, yeah, the book is called The Seven Energies of the Soul. And basically, what I did was I took the most common issues my students, clients always ask about from their careers, relationships, creativity, spiritual path, all of that jazz, and took what they always call their problems and turned them into archetypal energies. So if you're having an issue with your career, that you might be developing your inner creator. If you're having an issue with your relationships, maybe your inner lover is being developed, or your creative side, your artist, your spiritual side, your master. And you can kind of see the energies go up the chakras. So creator, healer, warrior, lover, uh, artist, explorer, and master, going up to the very top. And each energy can maybe be deficient or in excess. So we tend to lose balance. Maybe we're a workaholic, our creator is in excess, or maybe we shy away from, getting off the couch and really getting things done and being disciplined. And so our warrior is in deficiency. Maybe we have no boundaries. We're always giving and never receiving. So maybe our lover is in excess, or perhaps we want to sing or dance or play piano and we're just too afraid, and so our artist is in deficiency. So it kind of goes like that, and the book is about how to find balance in each one. So there's meditations and journal prompts, questions, kind of all of those action steps you can take. And then I created a meditation audio series to go along with it. And for me, the recipe for happiness and fulfillment in life is balance. And so if we fulfill every area of life, not just one or two, I think that's when it starts to taste really good. When we're happy, like, oh, wow, my creativity is moving, my relationships are healthy, my finances are on point. I get to explore this world. My curiosity is being fulfilled. All of those areas, I get to make an impact, give back. Yeah, I think that's how we live a really great, fulfilled life.
I love that all the chakras connected to each of the archetypes. That's so beautiful. Where did the inspiration for the book come from?
Oh, I stole it all from somebody else and they died. Oh my God, I've always wanted to say that. Thanks.
That came out so easily. You were waiting for that question.
Yeah, I just knocked that out of the park. 15 interviews later, I'm like, finally.
You didn't even take a beat. Like that
not
was
even, it's almost like it really happened.
Oh my gosh.
None of the archetypes I use are new, right? So I did steal them. I didn't make up any words. There's a lot of different archetypes, like the sage and the wizard and the king and all of that jazz. But for me, I wanted to create a structure that was so relatable that if you've never even meditated or done any personal development work and you picked up the book and you looked at each name, you would already kind of understand what it was. So there's no like real learning curve there, because life should be intuitive in that way, I think. Instead of like, you're the sage wizard. I'm like, well, how many chapters do I have to read to figure out what the sage wizard is? I'm just an accountant and I'm passing through the airport. I don't know what that means. I'm done. Right?
I'm done.
So I've always been a pretty practical dude. And so I just wanted it to be very open and practical. And so, and also the archetypes come from the most common questions I've gotten over, probably working with a few thousand people one-on-one over the years. And so they just kind of fell into those buckets over and over and over. And I called a psychologist, a therapist friend of mine, Dan Loney, who's a really amazing dude. I interviewed him once and I kind of hashed them out with him. And he does what's called schema work, the way we look at life through lenses. And there's 22 of them, I think. Might be wrong about that, 20 something. And, it lines up with that in a few different ways. So I kind of hashed it out with some really great people I know over time and distilled it as much as I could. And then, I secretly had someone ghostwrite the book. They're also dead. I'm just kidding. Yeah. And luckily I found a publisher that was willing to work with me. That was really helpful. And
Amazing.
here we are. Here we are with the 7 Energies of the Soul by David.
I think you need a comedy series.
Yeah, for real. Now, every time if you read my book, you're going to hear that by David.
I think spiritual leader comedy stand-up. I think that's it's in your future, because it also like humbles, it's like, I'm a spiritual leader and I'm also fucking human. And like, let's make fun of all this stuff that we're absorbing and remembering. It's coming back.
Yeah, that's the one comment I get the most, especially on Insight Timer where I teach, that people enjoy a little bit of humor because meditation tends to be this like really intense, serious process. And, just listen to one meditation track after the other. And it's always like some dolphin sounds with chimes in the background and someone like, breathe. Okay. Are you breathing? Did you just start breathing today? Do you know how to breathe? Oh, and everything in life is perfect. Breathe. I'm like, fucking throw me off a cliff. And so I just offended like all the meditation teachers listening to this right now. Hey, that's how my tracks are, you jerk. I'm just messing around. I do that too. But maybe so that approach has kind of helped, I think, connect with my students. And usually seriousness holds pain in place.
Mm,
When someone comes to you as a coach or healer, they're usually what they do is they put their most painful thing out in front of you right away. And they're like, look at this huge ball of pain. And then they weave this insanely complicated story around it of who did what to them and when and why they're hurting and who to blame. And they want you to unravel these, 1,000 rubber bands to get to the core with them. But all they do is keep spinning because they've been spinning with their therapist, for example, for a long time and just spinning in stories. And so if someone's seriousness gauge is at like 100% and I'm working with them, I know they're not going to be able to work through any pain that way because the seriousness freezes the pain in place. So the first thing
mm.
we have to do is kind of back up, take ourselves a little bit less seriously, ease up on some of the resistance, and then we could start making some progress. So that's often the first step in meditation for me with students is like, let's take it a little bit easy here, back off the intensity, and then let's see what happens.
That's
But David,
beautiful.
my ex partner did this to me 7 years ago. I'm like, yeah, and you'll have another ex partner who's going to do that to you for the next 7 years, and that with that attitude,
No,
and
it's
then they hate
beautiful.
you.
I mean, what is it? Laughter and joy, right? They bring such levity to things. And as we
Yeah,
know, the last like couple of years have been so serious. And I mean, we all need a good meme. We all need a good, funny to see
yeah,
because it is there the world, and I know you'll understand this, like the world is so serious already. So if we have the awareness to bring joy and lightheartedness to these serious topics, and yes, they're profound and they're amazing. Meditation's amazing. It's changed my life, it's changed your life. And we get to make fun and be human. And yeah, I love what you shared, that analogy about seriousness and pain. It's true. I mean, I used to be a very serious soul. I couldn't even laugh at myself, and now it's like, make fun of me all you want, right? It's like taking
yeah.
ourselves too seriously or taking things personally.
Usually when somebody can't laugh at themselves, they're identified with their pain and
Mm,
really identified with their story. So even in meditation, I would ask a student, even if you're listening to this, like from 0 to 100, how much are you identified with your pain and or your
mm,
story? Like that's your identity. And if that number feels really high for you, then it's a great place to start doing some work. Like, why am I so like velcroed or glued to this story and this energy? And then the next thing is, well, how do I get unvelcroed from this? Does David need to pull me off? Or how does this, do I need to take, 20 doses of ayahuasca to shake some of this loose, which is what some people try to do? Or, leave my partner, quit my job, go live on the other side of the world. People do really extreme stuff to try to separate from what's just in their heads, and it might not be that difficult. You don't have to, I mean, all those things could be fun, but you don't need to jar yourself so hard, because I've seen people do that and then they don't know who they are anymore, and they've lost their orientation and their groundedness. That often happens as well. So I think you want to take maybe for me anyway, like a medium approach, walk into the ocean step by step,
mm.
not necessarily jump in the deepest end just because it's the deepest end, and then you kind of lose yourself psychologically. I think it's important to do things in a safe, structured way that has a method to it. So when I teach my students, maybe in the beginning it seems very beginner, but you kind of get it at the level that you're at. And be patient and kind to yourself as you maybe heal or walk down the path. Otherwise, you'll spin out and burn your life down, or or whatever. Some other weird thing starts to happen. You end up in a cult, like we were joking about before. I think you want to keep who you really are and
Mm,
shed the pain and live a really lovely life. I don't think you need all the rest is distraction to me.
mm, beautiful. We're just going to leave it there. What a beautiful way to, yeah, to sum up our conversation. And yeah, the balance, right? We talked about the balance, the seriousness and the play, and just really amazing. So where can people find you? Where can people work with you?
Sure, I'm usually in my backyard. You can find me there. That'd be hilarious. We just ended it there. Just you have to
People are
find
like,
me.
I heard you on Soul Over Matter. Open up.
Yeah.
And you're like, they'll take hours, like the guru you saw who read your leaf.
Recently, I was standing at my front door, and some woman was like, "Are you David?" I was like, "Yeah." Are you gonna subpoena me? Am I in trouble? She's like, "Oh, I just me and my husband listen to your stuff all the time, you know." And it was so sweet. So that was kind of literal. But I was in my front yard. Don't ever come to my house though if you're listening to this, unless I'm having a barbecue or something. I have a cat. She's vicious. Watch out. You just like come to the front door, you just hear meow, but it's not the cat, it's just me making sounds because that's what I do when I guide meditations. All right, where can people find me? Sorry, I went on a tangent.
All good.
Meditationschool.us is my website. You can download the Meditation School app, or find me on Insight Timer if that's the app that you use. I think those two places are probably good. Yeah, I'm
Amazing.
on the internet. You can find me on the internet.
In the interwebs. Yes.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, thank you, David, so much for being here and sharing your story and your wisdom and your hilarity with my listeners. And yeah, thanks again.
Thanks, Michelle.